Perfect. Excellent. That was fantastic. So I've started a second recording now. There were
I
some
got you at least a
topics.
couple of hot takes, I
Oh
think.
man,
I think I
you
got
gave
you at
me,
least a couple.
yeah, it was funny, like a couple of things you were talking about, like things you knew 3 years ago. I particularly like that question. One, it's kind of when I started my journey outside of the
Yeah.
MSP space with PAX 8, which is not really outside of the
Yeah.
MSP, but it was where I
No, it's fair.
transitioned.
No. Don't lose that
Yeah,
thought. It is a little bit
but
outside the space.
it was where I
Yeah, that's why it needs to be
transitioned
deeper.
from an MSP to the channel, essentially. I dove in, and
That's fair.
that is an eye opener. And it was funny because like you and I had even talked about this, I think, when we were doing the beard shave, about like how I had attended IT Nation like in
Yeah.
2017 as an MSP, and like there's this whole ecosystem living around me, and I'm just a collateral damage of it sometimes. Like I use Automate, so this is
Sure.
why I'm here. And then I come back in 2022 for the beard shave and being like, you guys know each other? And like, it's you, Jason, Farling, Ian, like anybody,
Yeah.
Bardisi, like everyone knew each other, and we're showing up and we're having these massive table dinners. I'm like, holy cow, this like, you don't necessarily
Yeah.
know that. So, when I talk
Yeah.
about things I knew 3 years ago, like to me that
Oh, that's a good
resonated.
one. Yeah.
And then, the specific comment you made about, trying to time the market and like understanding and worrying about timelines, and like we don't know where the market's going to take us. But to me,
Yeah.
I feel like, especially where we sit in this industry, like we have an incredible amount of flex in for like, obviously we can't turn the whole ship, but like we have an amazing ability to carve the industry's path, right? Whether
Yeah.
it is,
Agreed.
you know,
Do you
representing,
mean we in the editorial sense, or do you mean
yeah,
somewhat we in the you and I sense,
just
or
you and
are we
me.
in the
No,
PAX
you
8
and me.
sense? Like you
No,
and me,
but
yeah.
generally
No,
like,
you're talking to a gentleman that genuinely hopes that is true, that
yeah.
I have the ability to influence, for sure.
Like as our reach grows and whatever the case is on that, like obviously we'll have more extensibility in that sense. But I'm thinking more along the lines of like the community as a whole. We
Yeah.
we we
Great call
vote
out.
we vote with our money. We are vocal. We look for authenticity, right? Like if
Yeah.
you know,
No, that right there. Pause right there. Drill into that. That's the only
yeah,
statement that needs to be made. That is the shift that it's being made, is we look for authenticity. I wouldn't say that's always been the case in humanity. I
no,
think
yeah.
they've been okay buying fluff and a lot of that stuff. But no, anyways, great. Good
But
call out, man. That's
like that's the one thing. I think one of honestly, like I think it was probably one of your posts where it was like a random thing on LinkedIn where someone gave like guaranteed 100% protection. And I think
oh,
like
you
I
make me
saw
throw up
you and
again.
like maybe Wes Spencer and a couple just jumped down their throat,
Yeah.
being like, look, your product could be the best thing in the world, but the fact that you guaranteed 100% authenticity means either A, your marketing department just ran with something with no backing, or B, like I don't trust your product. It's
You
smoke
know,
and mirrors because
you know
no one
why
should be
though,
doing
for
that.
me
Yeah.
and for Wes, that's such a big deal. It is actually not just harming
Yeah.
the situation by telling people something that's a false truth. It's actually making them dumber, and I hate people that make people dumber.
Yeah.
Right? I think the point is when you say stops all threats or 100% proof, can't get
Yeah.
past this. For me, that takes someone and says, oh, you don't need to learn more. That actually threats do get through, and you will have to learn to detect
Yeah.
them and respond to them and recover from them and move forward. Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I take quite offense. And I usually don't get frustrated. I'm the smiley guy, right? Like I'd like to
Yeah.
be Dr. Nice and Dr. No Shot, but
I tipped you on that one.
anyways.
Yeah. Well, no,
Yeah,
it is
yeah,
a very
good.
interesting, but like that goes back to the authenticity thing, right? And I think
Yeah.
like from a personal side, like it's the way I've always approached any business I've been in was like, I'll frequently have meetings with partners right now, and they're like, I want to put this in Azure, and I'll look at them straight in the eye and be like, this is not a good workload to put up there. Like you're going to be
Yeah, good
paying three
call.
times as much, and your client's going to hate you because this is
Yep.
not a work. Like I know you want to do it. Go to Enter ID
So
and
I'm
go
I'm
to
gonna put you on the spot.
yeah.
What do you so now I've got a workload. It's
Mhm.
likely the biggest piece of shit. It runs terribly. Sorry if you
Yeah.
didn't mark this as not safe for children, but
Ah,
you
that's
should
fine.
on my episode probably, right? And I think you
Yeah.
you look at that workload. What's the advice? Like I'll put you on the spot. What advice do you give in that regard? If you were sitting in that
Mhm.
MSP seat, what do you do?
Yeah. So a lot of the times it's the end design or the end goal that I usually try to work partners towards is what's going to do right for the client. And sometimes that's not even necessarily like what makes them happy. It's like what makes them
Yeah.
safe, right? Because like what makes them happy is like, everything on one VM exchange, $5,000 every
Yeah.
7 years, right? So sometimes I work with partners to have that tough conversation. It's like, look, that server you
Yeah.
built 7 years ago for $8,000, that ecosystem doesn't exist anymore. Like you now need
Yeah.
to modernize, and this is how much it now costs.
Yeah.
So like when we're
But
talking about these
that's one
legacies,
statement, right?
yeah,
Go ahead.
but
You
talking
continue.
about these like legacy applications and like I know it's going to be a problem. I'm straight up like I'll tell them like, look, you need to be transparent with your client on this one. Yes, this will work, but it'll be bad, and
Yeah.
you
It'll
know
cost a bunch. We have
it.
to do a big VM. We have to do whatever the
Yeah,
answers are for that,
it'll
right? Like,
cost, and be honest, like, and this puts you as a partner at risk because now you have
so
someone entering the ecosystem of small to medium businesses slandering the solution you gave to them, despite the warnings. They're never going to tell people that.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Protect
They won't go,
yourself
but
as
they
well.
did tell me this is going to suck. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
what I want to
So
get into real quick, and I know we don't want to extend too much, but
yeah, yeah.
is that, you think about John Kindervag one day, who's part of one of the authors of Zero Trust, pretty much, basically, 800-207, and as well as some books about it. But John Kindervag one day in the meeting was going off about the difference between strategy and operations and tactics, right? And he said, I want to make sure everybody understands this, and I'm going to put it out this way, and I hope I don't paraphrase it too wrong. But strategy is coming up with the grand vision, the grand plan of how we're going to accomplish this goal. This is what are the things, the strategies that we want to employ as the ways we're going to accomplish this as an overarching statement. The next statement then is getting into operations or tactics. I'm sorry. Tactics say, well, in order to do these giant strategies, I must accomplish this thing. I must take this hill. I must build this product. I must do these things.
Yeah.
Those are very tactical decisions of how we're going to move forward. And then operations is turning the wrench. Operations is moving the VM. Operations
Yep.
is making this move to cloud. And what I want to make sure that MSPs take away from this is at some point you have to shift up a layer and hopefully two. If you can get to where the strategy is that we're going to at some point be identity provided based, we're going to be running in SaaS consumption, we'll have great shared responsibility matrices with people, we'll have the ability to do these things and understand where our data flows are. And then the tactics are making VM moves to the cloud because we have to support them for now in our line of business. But at some point we run into a piece of software that is the clunker piece of crap that makes the linchpin in our decision at an operations and tactics level to keep Active Directory alive and to manage that in a normal way. My argument would be that those that you find, Matt, the ones that won't move up, that I have to keep an old server, buy a new server, and industry specific, don't take this as a blanket statement, but
Yeah.
my goal, my strategy, and my tactics will try to drive towards convincing that client that it's time to start shopping for new operations and tactics for them in their own way. And what I mean by that is we're now becoming in their business more and more as MSPs. We
The
actually get to
virtual
drive
CTO.
those
Yeah.
changes. Yeah, yeah, exactly. CTO,
We've been
CISO,
saying
and
that.
some part of the hat. Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's been a marketing
exactly.
thing for MSPs. Like, oh, we're your virtual CTOs, but are we really wearing that hat?
And you're like,
Right.
no, you're my virtual. Tell me when to buy 43
Yeah.
new machines so I don't get behind on my old machines, like
Yeah, exactly.
person.
Here's
And
your end of
that's the
life.
strategy
Yeah.
difference, right, of where you get to be in that seat. So
And that's an
that's why I kind of
operational.
asked that trick question.
Yeah, that's an
Yeah,
operational level maturity level increase that is incredibly difficult for MSPs to do
yeah,
because like not only is it like seat count growth and changing the way they go, but like it generally means client attrition, right? You're not gonna
it does.
convince everybody
Yeah,
to come over into the new
no,
system. Like there's gonna be that person who might be 65
yeah,
years
yeah,
old, getting ready to shut the business down. They're not gonna modernize. They're gonna keep doing things in
yeah.
Excel, right? Like it's just
If I started another MSP today,
yeah,
I would only target those Goldilocks clients.
yeah,
I would only target the ones that are either already identity centric or maybe living on AD just to live on AD,
yeah,
or maybe move out a ring and say the ones that are need and dependent on those LOBs, but our line
yeah,
of business software, sorry, but also then will be willing to make that change in Delta in order to
yeah,
work there. And think about what you're asking that client to do. You're like, and why is there attrition, Matt? Because you're going, hey, doctor's office. I know you
yeah.
use this one practice management system that you've taught all your numbsuckles how to use for the last 5 years. But if we switch to a new one,
5.
they're
Yeah.
not going to know it. You're going to have to teach them, and it's going to take 7 years. And like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like that's
It's
hard to ask someone to do. It's
it
hard.
is because it's never the focus. Like they just want things to work. And that's kind of what
That's
MSP is like. We
exactly
just
it.
make sure things work, right? Well, now we need to drag a lot of industries into the modern age. Like,
Yeah.
and that's a very difficult conversation. And like the crazy part is it's not immediately profitable. Like it's not like, oh, I've
Yeah.
dragged you
No.
in. If anything,
No.
it
It's an
tends to mean you
investment.
make
Yeah.
sometimes you make less money on the
But
new solution,
but
but
they
then you
make those decisions,
yeah,
Matt.
but then you
They
don't
make those
hemorrhage,
decisions.
right? You don't
Well, no,
hemorrhage
what I mean is they make those
service. Yeah.
decisions on like stuff they understand. This is the premise I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is if you tell them, hey, your X-ray system is taking a long time, it's outdated, it's time to get a new one. If you get this, it's going to make this many more patients can go through the X-ray faster. You can get faster reads, you can get quicker adoption, you can get cheaper radiology reads because they'll go to
Yeah.
them easier. Like all of those things become true. They go, buy it. We'll spend that million. We'll amortize it over the next 4 years. That's why EBITDA exists with
Yeah.
an A, right? We'll make those decisions over time. And they understand that's an investment. They don't think of the technology change as an investment, Matt.
Yeah.
That's the failure. That's the, anyway,
But I'm
sorry.
even
I
talking like
get
from
off
an
my
MS.
soapbox.
No,
But
no, man, it's
yeah.
a good box. But like specifically like from the MSP standpoint, some of the pushback I've heard when they're talking about modernization going into the cloud is like, I don't want to give up my 5-year CapEx investment that I get every time that server goes in.
Yeah.
So they just look at the loss of margin and you know, a lot of that stuff you can mark up
Yeah.
40, 50%. So then they're like, I'm losing 10 grand. That's all they see. What generally
Right.
falls through is like, you know, your operational, your service expenses, you know, your service margin never factors into that for a lot of organizations. So it's like, yes, you make 10 grand now, but over the next 7 years, you lose $100,000 in labor because you're on site dealing with this legacy architecture, dealing with all this stuff. And, you know, we saw the modernization like with the COVID push, everyone went remote, but it forced kind of a change of like, I don't want to be rolling trucks every day to restart someone's PC or to hard cycle a server or whatever the case is, or, you know, and especially with a lot of the compromise coming through like hardware now or like unpatched at like
Or just
physical
the
assets.
fact that you, all kinds of
Firmwares
things.
and things like
all
that.
local. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, like I go back to like the amount of the Hyper-Vs or not Hyper-Vs, but like V-centers I had to patch and how much of a nightmare that was because like you had to make sure everything came up. It took forever. You had to bring physical media.
Right?
You're doing it at 1 in
HA
the morning.
getting involved,
Oh,
storage systems that are remote storage systems that need to be dealt with, like all kinds of fun
So
stuff.
then you just,
for sure.
You delayed them for as long as possible. But if there's like a 0-day exploit out there, like, and you've got,
Let's not even call it a
40
0
hosts-
day. I'm seeing stuff get popped 95 days afterwards, right?
Yeah.
People are still getting popped on Move It right now with that problem.
Yeah,
So let's
yeah.
not even call
So
it
it's-
0 day. It's a negative 300 day sometimes.
It's a day patch. Yeah. Either way, it's, you know, I just think back to, I can't recall ever going and flashing firmware on network switches, right? Like, you know, doing things like that, or like,
We did. But
you know, like you would do it like on occasional like TBRs or whatever the case is, but it wasn't like we weren't monitoring the channels for like this unless it hit like bleeping computers or something like that, right? So like, there was all this stuff that like you take for granted of not having to do because it never factors in, but then these oh shit moments happen and all of a sudden you're rolling like 15 trucks to every site to patch all these things.
I used to call it the war room, right? You're in the war room at that point. Yeah.
Hafnia, man, like the we'll end on this because we've got a hard stop. But I remember the day I accepted my position here at PAX 8, Hafnium dropped and Printer Nightmare was still ongoing. And on my exit,
the third or fourth iteration of Printer Nightmare.
And on my
Hafnium
exit,
you're referring to as the beginning of the proxy not shell, proxy shell, all the exchange abuses that turned into major.
I remember sitting in my chair upstairs and finding it on Reddit, being like Hafnium exploit. And I know we have like 2 or 3 like legacy exchange servers still in play that we hadn't quite gotten around to moving yet. And I send it as I'm looking at it. My sysadmin hits me up on Discord, being like, "Hey, did you see this?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm already logging in to check." And like, sure enough, 7 o'clock.
Shell.
We got it. 7:05. Already like we already knew they were compromised. So like the next day we were like, "Here's your project to rebuild," right? Like we didn't. So that last 3 weeks was essentially rebuilding entire environments on the way out, and just being like, "Yeah, I'm all in on cloud now. I don't want to have to do that again."
There's a pretty bold claim, just to add credence to that. There's a pretty bold claim of a single scanner that can scan the internet in 6 minutes. It's not Rust Scan. It was before, it predates Rust Scan, but I watched a review on it last night. But if you think about it, if I was looking for a certain exposed exchange servers, I can actually script that out of just Shodan, right, for most of them. And so this is a very easy and automatable thing to do. So but that would have been December 2021, and I remember it well because I almost started at a particular vendor that was part of that as a director of security right before that. And then wound up not even related. I just didn't
Yeah.
take the role. But
Yeah.
anyways, man.
Excellent. Well, thank you so
Oh, it
much
was
for your
great to hang
time.
out with you, brother. And
Always, man.
Neon Cobra for life.
Yeah. Excellent. I gotta love the sign. I got kudos to my wife again for that. That was the
Oh,
nail in the
it's so
coffin. It's like, well,
good.
now it's physically present. I got to do something. So,
Yeah, yeah,
excellent.
yeah, yeah.
All
Is
right,
that the
man.
neon sign behind you? Is that a
That
Cobra?
is, yeah, Neon Cobra.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Excellent.
you. I think with your other camera, it probably grabs it nicely, doesn't it? The
Yeah,
sign.
yeah, exactly. The feed you're
Yeah.
getting, which is the reason why I got the nicer camera. Maybe I'll get a
Yeah,
DSLR
it
someday.
totally
So,
makes sense. Yeah, yeah. DSLR would do it too. Yeah.
excellent. All right, man.
But man, it
Take
was great.
care,
Thank you, sir.
and thank you everyone for joining. Take care.